All right. All right. Hello, everyone. See people still coming in. So just give it another minute, then we will get started. Okay. Looks like the attendance has slowed down. So we will go ahead and get started. So welcome to the overview of the updated annual filing system for cash basis governments. My name is Kaylee Paggio, and with me today is Vivian Vandenberg. We are both on the local government support team here at the State Auditor's Office, and we are excited to bring you this virtual training to walk through the updates made to the annual filing system. So we will go over the agenda in just a moment, but first, some webinar housekeeping items. In the Zoom window, there is a panel at the bottom that includes a Q&A button. Please use this to submit any questions you have during the webinar. You'll see a chat feature as well, but that will not be monitored during the webinar. So make sure to use the Q&A button. We did email yesterday a PDF copy of today's slides, but if you didn't get that email, let us know and we can get you that. And then just a disclaimer that since the scope of this training is limited to the annual report filing process, if your question is just a little bit more on the technical accounting and reporting side, we may refer you to the help desk or reach out to you after the webinar. And just a reminder, this training is not eligible for CPE, but we did include 5 polling questions throughout the webinar. These are really intended for us to collect some information and just help keep everyone engaged in a virtual training, which we all know is a little difficult to do sometimes. And that's why also feel free to ask as many questions. We will have breaks throughout the presentation to address any questions that we can talk about as a group. And with that, let's go ahead and practice our first polling question. So I'm going to launch our first polling question, and it should pop up on your screen. The question is, have you ever filed an annual report before? And we usually leave these open for 30 to 60 seconds, depending. There's a couple that have a little bit more of answer responses, so we'll give it additional time for those. And also, just in addition, that when the webinar ends, a survey will pop up in a separate window in your internet browser. And it's just 2 questions: what went well today? And if there's anything you think we could improve on for next year. We always appreciate any feedback you have. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And then we're able to share the results so you guys can see how the majority of people answered. So we have a lot of repeat filers with us today, which is awesome. And then we have some new people. So welcome if this is going to be your first annual report. All right. Now let's get into our agenda. So we will start out by sharing a little background on the overall project of updating the filing system. For those of you that may be new to this process or maybe just need a refresher, we will provide an overview of the various reporting requirements. So these are the components within the annual report. We will then quickly take a little tour of the BARS manual. This is not a bars class, but we at least want to point out just a few key resources that will help you when you're preparing the report. Then for the most exciting part of the training is we will walk you through the updated filing system and go over all of the new features and how to use them. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with additional resources and training opportunities that are available to local governments related to the annual report and bars. So let's get into our first agenda item. A little background on why the State Auditor's Office, also referred to as SAO, needed to update the filing system. The previous filing system was built in a program that has become outdated, which prevented us from making necessary updates and made it extremely difficult to maintain. Since we already had to make updates to the program, we want to take the opportunity to make some updates that would benefit our clients. We wanted to align the look and feel of the system with other aspects of our SAO website. And most importantly, we wanted to create a better user experience for our clients. And our hope is that after introducing you to the updated system, you will think that we achieved that goal. So there is a lot you can expect with the updated filing system, but some of the best improvements include an overall enhanced user experience with clear navigation and instructions. There are new functionalities that allow you to better identify and correct errors throughout the report. And there are new and improved ways to reach out for assistance directly in the filing system. And if you're a repeat filer, we have made it so there is less automatic signing out of the system, which requires you to re-log in. We know that was a pain point for some people, so happy to say that we were able to fix that. And we are no strangers to the anxious feeling when you hear the word change. We want to help ease that anxious feeling by reminding everyone that there are no changes to the information that you submit as part of the annual report. Essentially, none of the content of the report is changing, just the vessel in which we collect the report. Now, with that, though, there are minor content changes in the sense that we have converted the Schedule 17 to an uploaded schedule instead of an attachment. And then we just made one format change to the Schedule 09 template, and we'll go over those as we navigate through the filing system. The next agenda item is reviewing the annual report requirements. We will discuss each component of the report and what information is expected. Now, this is just a really high level overview of the different components. And then when Vivian takes us through bars, then you'll be able to see where you can find all of the detailed instructions for all of these different components. So the first step, though, is understanding what exactly the annual report is. If you are new to local government or maybe new to your current position, you may be asking yourself, what is this thing that I keep hearing about? So in the most basic terms, the annual report is a compilation of the government's financial activity and other required information, such as liabilities, grants, etc., for each fiscal year. Our office is responsible for developing systems and forms for governments to submit this information to us. And we really strive to provide quality resources and trainings to local governments. Every local government in the state of Washington is required to submit their annual report to our office within 150 days after the close of each fiscal year. This requirement is outlined in state law, specifically RCW 4309-230. And this is why we do not have the authority to grant extensions to this deadline, since it's established by the legislature and put into state law. So now that we have a basic understanding of what the annual report is, now we are going to go through the different components. The Schedule 01 is the biggest component, and it's required for all local governments. The purpose of this schedule is to report the government's financial activity for the reporting year using BARS codes to identify the specific type of activity. This includes the beginning and ending cash and investment balances for all funds reported on the O1. Some of the smaller governments may only report one fund, while larger governments may report multiple funds. As cash basis government, it should include all revenues and expenditures for the year. And these are all categorized using the applicable BARS codes. Now, the Schedule O1 does hold a lot of importance because it drives so many things within our agency, such as financial trends that are displayed in the financial intelligence tool. It's also what generates the statement C4 and C5 for cash basis governments. And we'll talk about what those are when we get into the filing system. And then the Schedule O1 also helps us meet our statutory requirement of comparative statistics. The Schedule O9 is used to report information on the government's liabilities. These are things like loans, bonds, pension, leases, etc. If a government truly does not have any liabilities, then the Schedule O9 is not required. However, we strongly encourage reviewing the instructions for the schedule just to make sure that you don't have any liabilities that would be required to report. And moving on to the Schedule 15, this is used to report expenditures that used state financial assistance. It's important to remember that this is for expenditures only. So it's only reported when you use state financial assistance to pay for something. This should be reported in the fiscal year that the expenditures occurred. The Schedule 16, also referred to as the SEFA, which stands for Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, is used to report expenditures that used federal award money. So just like the Schedule 15, it's for expenditures only and should be reported in the fiscal year that the expenditures occurred. So the Schedule 21 is used to collect information on how the government responds to risks for liability, property, health, unemployment, etc. Governments will be required to answer questions directly in the filing system to determine if the full Schedule 21 is required based on those responses. Now, it is required for everyone to answer the questions in the filing system. So that is going to be a required step. And we will go over that when we get into the filing system. The notes to the financial statements are intended to communicate information necessary for a fair presentation of financial position and results of operations that can be included, that cannot be included in the financial statements themselves. This is a required component for governments that receive about $2 million in annual revenue or more, and or receives a financial statement audit. So please note that external authorities may require the preparation of notes regardless of our requirements at SAO. Then we have the Schedule 22. This is a questionnaire that provides information on the government's operations for the reporting year. It also requires additional components to be attached, such as meeting minutes, county treasurer reports, bank statements, policies, etc. The questionnaire and related attachments are all done directly in the filing system. Now, this is generally required for local governments that receive less than $300,000 in annual revenue, but it is required for specific government types as well, regardless of revenue amount. So stay tuned though, we'll be talking more about the 22 when we get into the filing system. So there are some requirements that are only applicable to cities, towns, and counties. So we're going to go over those now. The Schedule 06 is required for every city, town, and county and is used as a summary of the government's bank reconciliation. We have a separate, more in-depth training on this component. So for the purposes of this training, we won't dive into much detail on this component. But if you have questions or want to see that training, definitely reach out to us and we can point you in the right direction. Then the Schedule 17 applies to both cities, towns, and counties, but the instructions do differ between the two. This schedule is heavily driven by RCW. So if you're not sure it applies to you, please review the BAR's manual instructions and the applicable RCWs to make that determination. Basically, it is used to document compliance with limitations on public works projects performed by public employees. And then for the counties, there are two parts. So part one is to report information on public works projects performed by public employees. Then part two is basically the same requirement as the city's one. And we'll go over how this is inputted into the filing system later. And then lastly is the Schedule 20. This is only required for rural counties. So not even all counties, it's very specific. And this is also driven by RCW. The counties that are required to do this, they know that they're required. And we did have a separate training on that, which was issued via email. So I won't go into much detail since it's such a small population that it applies to. And that brings us to our second polling question. So going to launch that. The question is, what type of government are you associated with? And if you have any questions so far, please submit them in the Q&A because we will pause for a moment to address any questions. Give that a couple more seconds. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, sharing the results real quick. So lots of special purpose districts, which are a large population of our local government. So that is not too surprising, but looks like a good mix. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the results. And then, as I said, we were going to pause. I see one question out there. So the question is, if a special purpose district has revenue under $2 million and has no financial statement audit, are financial statement notes required by SAO? The answer is no. So now if you are close to 2 million, your audit team may require notes to be prepared just in preparation of when you get to that 2 million threshold, which would require a financial statement audit. But if you're well under the 2 million and there's no external authority that requires the preparation of notes, then it is not required as part of your SAO annual report. All right. Don't see any other questions. So perfect timing to send it over to Vivian for our next agenda item.
Thanks, Kaylee. Before I get started, I do just want to say that somebody reached out and had requested a handout. I'm hoping that you received it. My original email directly to you came back as undeliverable. So if you didn't get it, just go ahead and send us another chat and one of us can get you another copy at an updated email. So we want to make sure you get your materials that you might need. All right. So with that little caveat, we're going to go ahead and just do a quick tour of the online BARS manual. There's a lot of areas in the BARS manual that you'll at least need to be familiar with as you prepare your annual report. So let's get going. So I first just want to be sure that you're all aware of the various sections that are included in the BARS manual. So we do have the chart of accounts. We have a budgeting section, an accounting section, and a reporting section. So we're going to go over quite a few of these sections today. But all of our BARS manual material can be found online. So hopefully you're not a first-time filer looking around for a document or a giant old binder, which is something that we used to do. All of these sections right here, they're found online. If you are somebody that does like to print things though, we do have the opportunity and offer for you to print that BARS manual. So just keep that in mind if going out to the website every single time isn't exactly your cup of tea. So where are you going to find our online manual? Let's start there. If you hop over to our regular website, so just www.sao.gov, this is the landing page that you're going to see. And all of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is going to be found under this BARS and annual filing tab. Today, this is the cash basis class. And so we are going to just go ahead and hop into that cash basis item. So as you can see there, it is illuminated in orange. That means that's what you're going to actually be selecting. So once you pop in, this is where you are going to land. So this is our main landing page for the cash basis manual. And we're going to first talk about the chart of accounts section. So if you've ever been in a training with us before, you're probably going to think that my next statement is kind of making me sound like a broken record, but I'm okay with that because there's a lot of useful information in this chart of accounts section. So the first one we're going to talk about is the BART account export. You are going to want to make sure that you always come out here prior to beginning and compiling your annual report. The Schedule 01, as Keely had mentioned, is a required component of the annual report for everybody. And so you're going to want to make sure that you have all of the correct BARS account codes that go on the Schedule 1 to be sure that you're doing it correctly. There are oftentimes that there are updates that are done to BARS account codes, which we'll talk about how you can find those later. And that means that some of your codes that you might have used last year might not be available this year. And the filing system already knows that. So if you're trying to use those old codes, it might yell at you. The other part that we're going to talk about just right here is the object codes section. So this is also pretty helpful. And I say that it's most helpful in conjunction with the BARS account export. So when you export your chart of accounts, some of the codes won't be all 7 digits as required for filing. And that means that you're going to need to go out and find the object code that is associated with that specific code. If this was a huge BARS class training, we'd probably spend about 30 minutes talking about all of this. But because it's not, I just want to point out to you where you can go find the info. And if it is a question that you might have and you're like, oh, I wish they would talk about that, just reach out to us. We're happy to talk about it at any time with you. We're going to pop out of here though, and we're going to jump into the accounting section, which is just full of all sorts of goodies. The one that we often point folks to during the filing season though, it's going to be found under that first item. So the accounting principles and internal controls. And once you enter that, it's going to be an expanded drop down and you'll find a bunch of additional pages. But the one I really want to talk about is the cash and investment codes. So there are specific codes available for reporting your beginning and ending cash and investment codes. And there's a special page just for it. There's a lot of questions that we get on this. And so we have a whole page including examples as you're trying to evaluate and attempt to allocate and classify all of your cash and investments. There's just a ton of examples and information out on that page, so make sure that you check it out. The other one that I think a lot of folks are probably going to find a lot of interest in right now is this awards page. It's about halfway down the options that are listed here. We know that there's a lot of award activity going on out there. And there's a lot of different rules with all of those awards. So be sure to check out that page also in the accounting section here. It's full of all sorts of guidance. We have specialists in our office that work with federal agencies to be sure that we have the most up-to-date guidance for you all. And then the most used section of the manual during filing season is the reporting section. You are trying to compile an annual report, so it makes sense. If you realize that maybe you have a schedule that you're required to submit, maybe you haven't done that schedule before, all of the instructions that you're going to need to fill out that schedule, it's going to be found in this section specifically. So be sure to jump out here if there's anything you're not familiar with. We've got all sorts of info in here. The supplementary and other information section, this is definitely going to be helpful. There's Schedule 9 is included in there, which almost everybody has to file one of those. So definitely check that out. But if you have something that is just an SAO annual report, again, there's instructions for each and every one of those out here. So definitely be sure you check out that section too, if you think that that's where your schedule's at. And then this last little section, so I kind of just briefly touched on updates that happen when I first started talking. We analyze our bars manual on an annual basis. We go through it and we grab out some stuff that might be outdated. Maybe there's some new state law that requires us to update some of our guidance or account codes. All of those alerts and changes, all those changes, excuse me, are retained under each of these specific years. So if, again, you're using a Schedule 01 template from last year and you get a flag on one of your codes, you realize it's not valid anymore, your change is going to be captured under this reporting year 2023 page right here. So definitely keep that in mind. Sometimes we just have folks that go out here before they start doing the annual report, just to be sure that they have captured every single update that has happened before they actually get going, so they don't get yelled at by the filing system. So check it out at any time. It's always out here. Some more website goodies. These aren't necessarily located inside of the cash manual though. So if you look over on the left there, you'll see that the highlighted part is actually selecting the bars reporting templates now, whereas the bars cash manual is the second option in the list. So it is in the drop down back on our main page. It's just obviously below the bars cash manual. The bars reporting templates page, though, it does have the most up-to-date templates for all of the schedules that may be required to be submitted to our office. So we also always highly encourage governments come out to this page to grab their most up-to-date schedule template that they need to supply to us. There are oftentimes updates to these also in our annual update, and you definitely want to make sure that you're using the right one. The system will know if you are not, so definitely come out here. So speaking of templates, you'll see on the left side there, those are our Schedule 01 templates. Because everybody is required to submit a Schedule 01, there is a Schedule 01 template for almost everybody. Cities, counties, and towns, because you all have the opportunity to use almost every bars account code that there is available to you. We don't have a template for you. Generally, there is some sort of export option in your accounting system that it does generate that for you. So if you, though, are air pollution or you'll see fire districts are out there, if that's any of you, go ahead, pop out here, grab your most up-to-date templates. And then on the right side, that front screenshot there, those are the schedules designed for online filing. So the Schedule 09, it has its own template. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, quite a bit today. But make sure you pop out here, grab the most up-to-date one. We'll talk about the update that did happen to this one. So hopefully you've gotten that message from me already. Up-to-date Schedule 09 template. Please come grab it before you start trying to file your annual report this year. And I think that brings us to our next question slide, but it looks like Kaylee might have got them all taken care of. So back to you, Kaylee.
Thank you. Okay, now we are getting into the exciting part for me is navigating the updated filing system. But before we do that, we do have our third polling question. So I am launching that. So how excited are you about seeing the upgraded filing system? Answers are flying in. Give that a few more seconds so everyone has a chance to respond. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end that poll, share the results real quick. So really pretty even across the board. So this will be fun. I'm excited to get into this agenda item. All right. Okay, so the first step is logging into the filing system. Now, if you are a previous filer, you're probably like, I got this, I already know how, but we want to make sure that we address our new folks here today so that they have a clear visual of all of the steps needed to get into the filing system. So first step is logging in. When you are at our website, sao.wa.gov, you're going to click client login up in the top right corner. As you can see with that orange arrow. So you'll click that and then you will land on this page. So you're going to log in with SAW. Local governments are required to log in with their Secure Access Washington, which means blah, that's what SAW stands for. And for this audience, just ignore the Active Directory option. That is only for state agencies. So then once you click login with SAW, you'll be redirected to their webpage to input your user credentials and follow the steps for the multi-factor authentication. If you've forgotten your username or password since the last filing season, you can click either the forgot password or forgot username links and follow those steps to either reset or get that information. This is a good time to just point out that we at SAO do not have the ability to view or change password or do anything with the SAW account issues and things like that. So that all has to be done by them. Our piece of the puzzle is that we grant the correct access to the filing system based on the government that you are associated with. So once you get logged in and you follow all those steps, you're going to automatically be redirected into our SAO site. So if the login was successful, you should land on the online services page. If you don't see this and it's prompting you to like select your government and set up your account, that's a good time to pause and reach out to us, because especially if you have logged in and accessed everything before, that's a good way to indicate that something went awry with the login and access. And then from here, you're going to hover your mouse over that annual report filing tab and click annual reports. Then that will take you to our annual report homepage, and this will list all the current and prior year annual reports for the governments that your account is associated with, and it only goes back to fiscal year 2020. Now, in this screenshot, obviously you can see lots of different governments. That's because this is an admin screenshot, so you will only see the governments that you're associated with. Then when you are ready to create your report, you're just going to click that create annual report button up in the top right corner. And that is going to open a pop-up window, and then you will be able to select your government, and the fiscal year should populate to 2023, since that is the current fiscal year we're filing for right now. So before we move on, I just want to go back and take a closer look at the dashboard on the annual report homepage. There is a little dashboard for each year's annual report. The dashboard on the left of your screen, you will see the unlock icon. This will be displayed for reports that have already been submitted. To open a report for edits, you will need to unlock it first. If the unlock icon is gray, that means an audit report has already been published for that year. So you would need to reach out to your audit team for a manual unlock. I want to quickly point out that you should only unlock the report if you're needing to make edits. If you just want to view the report, just click anywhere in that dashboard and it will open the report as a view only read. And then there's no chance of, making an accidental change or adjustment. And so it's really good just to view. And then on the dashboard on the right, this is a report that is in progress. So you're going to see the edit icon. This is also what you'll see after the report is unlocked. So this just indicates that it's ready for edits. And so you can click that to get into that report. So there are a few other features here as well that I want to talk about. When the report is submitted by the deadline, you will receive a little thumbs up icon to indicate it was submitted on time. If it was submitted past the deadline, you would see the number of days the report was late. But don't worry, we don't give you a thumbs down icon. So we're not that mean. And then on the other side, you will see this gas gauge looking thing. This is a task tracker. So it's going to show your progress throughout the filing process. It will show the number of tasks completed out of the total number of tasks required to complete the report. Just a note that the last task is submitting the report. So in this example, you will see 12 out of 12 when the report is officially submitted. And then the last new thing here is we display the total number of required and warning errors in the report. This helps you to see how many errors are remaining without having to sift through the entire report and try to figure out what is left. So if you've been a previous filer, these icons have replaced the previous flag concept. So we have removed the red, yellow, and green flags. So now the required error icon is essentially replacing the red flag. Those are errors that are required to be fixed before you can submit. And then the warning error icon is what used to be the yellow flag. These are errors that we would want you to look at, but they're not going to prevent you from submitting since there could be an explainable reason. And then we have improved the overall navigation of the filing system to be more uniform and easier to identify which components are completed where in the system. The annual report components are broken out into different modules, and there are steps or sections within each module. The module and step title will be in orange text to clearly show what page you're on. Every government will have these same modules except cities, towns, and counties, who will have one additional module at the end for the road street report that is required by WSDOT. And remember that task gauge that we were just talking about? It is also displayed at the top above the navigation panel, and this will update automatically as you complete tasks. So if you're a person that loves checking off things on a to-do list, this is made for you. So it will update in real time. And there are also buttons to download the report and get help, which are also going to be displayed above the navigational panel for easy access, and they will be displayed throughout the entire process. So that's where those are found. But let's take a closer look at the download button and what is in there. So this is where you can download a component of the report or download the report in its entirety into one PDF. This is all live data. So what that means is you can download any of these, including the download all, at any point during the filing process. So you can do all of this prior to submission if you need to. If you've been a previous filer, you may remember that the print all or the download all function was only available after you submitted the report. We got a lot of requests asking for it to be available before submission so they could review everything. And so now you are able to do that. And then jumping over into the help button, this is going to include various ways that you could receive help during the filing process. So the chat support is letting you know where to find the live chat feature, which will be a red ribbon in the bottom right of the web page. And this is like an instant messenger where you can chat with a SAO filing specialist on annual report questions. Now, this is only available during peak filing season, which is March through May. And then there is a link to our SAO help desk, which is where we recommend asking the more technical accounting and reporting questions. And then lastly, we have a new feature here that I'm really excited about. I think you will all be excited about it as well. So under contact us, you just have to type in your annual report question and click send email, and it will automatically go to our filing support inbox and a filing specialist will respond. So this will be really useful when that live chat feature isn't available. And instead of having to get out of filing, open your email, copy paste, you can do all of that right here. And when we get the email in our support inbox, when we respond, it's going to go to the email address of the person's account used to submit the question. So for example, if Jane Doe from Adams County submitted the question from the 2023 Adams County annual report, the email response will go to Jane Doe's email address that we have in our database that is associated with this government. So it is super easy and streamlined. So definitely use that feature if you are needing help, especially after business hours. You know that maybe you're filing at midnight. I hope not, but you never know. So that will be a good feature, hopefully. Okay, so now we are going to navigate through those different modules. The first module is titled Government Information. On the left of the screen, you'll see what fiscal year you're reporting for, and then below is a question asking if the government is reporting activity for the fiscal year. The answer is always going to be defaulted as yes, because it's pretty uncommon for a government to have zero activity, but it does happen. So you'll see a little blue information icon there to give you more guidance on what no activity means. And then on the right of the screen, you're going to see your government's information, such as official name, billing address, audit liaison, and basis of accounting. If any of that information is incorrect, just go ahead and click that blue button that says request for updates to government information. And then this nifty little pop-up window will open. Just type in what needs to be updated and click send email. This will go to our SAO technicians who are responsible for updating and maintaining that database. So just like the other help email, you don't even have to leave the filing system. Then the next module is titled Revenues and Expenditures, and this is where the Schedule 01 is filed. You'll see there are two blue buttons to upload your completed template, or you can add the data manually. If you click the upload schedule button, this pop-up window will open with instructions on how to import the Schedule 01 file. When you first create your report and go to this module, this pop-up window will automatically open. But if you're not ready to upload, or maybe you prefer to add the data manually, you can just close the pop-up window and continue on. But within that pop-up window, we provide a link to our BARS reporting templates page where you can find and download the Schedule 01 Excel template for your government type and basis of accounting, if you haven't done so already. And then we also provide direct links to the Schedule 01 instructions within the BARS manual. Then once you're ready, click the select Schedule 01 file and choose your file that you want to upload. But let's say you prefer to add the data manually. You would close that pop-up window for importing and you would click the add line item button and you'll enter each line of data individually. If adding multiple lines, you will need to do this process each time. So just a word of caution, it might not be the most efficient method if you have a lot of data to enter. Then once the data is uploaded or added manually, all line items will appear in the data table. If you have been a previous filer, you may remember seeing multiple pages that you had to click to navigate through your Schedule O1 line items, but now it's all in one place. So all you have to do is scroll up and down directly in the data table. So it's all in one place. There are no more having to click back and forth. We really wanted to make this more of a one-stop shop so you can do everything you needed for each component just right there in the same page. And then at the bottom of the data table, there is some summary information that includes the total number of line items, total number of required errors, and total number of warning errors. This helps you keep track of where you're at in the process of triaging and fixing errors, so you always have those running totals. But let's look at the Schedule O1 data table a little closer. So if a line item has an error icon, you can click the line item and all errors associated with that line will appear below, as shown in this example. So in this example, there are 3 required errors for this specific line item, and then there are no warning errors. So you can edit or delete that line item if you need to as you're fixing errors, or maybe you added it accidentally and you just want to delete it. You can do that all right here. Now, just a word of caution that if you're making a lot of edits, or if you want to delete, like 20 rows, it might be more efficient if you just re-upload a revised Schedule O1 template, because that will overwrite any of the existing data. So you can re-upload the Schedule O1 as many times as you need to, and each upload will overwrite that existing data. Then these two, there are 2 icons for the download and filter options for the Schedule O1. If you ever forget which one is which, you can hover your mouse over it and it'll indicate what that icon is for. So looking at the download icon first, this allows you to download the Schedule O1 as a PDF or Excel file. Then one new thing here is you can now download the O1 as a template. So this may not be heavily used, but if you uploaded a template already, but you did a lot of manual edits in the system, it might be beneficial to download a revised template just to have for your records, just in case maybe you need to re-upload later on, you would have an updated version. The difference between the template and the Excel download is that the template is formatted for uploading, and the other just Excel version, it includes like the title, a government header, etc. And those are all things that look nice and professional, but will cause errors if you try to upload that format. All right, then let's look at the filter options. And I think this is a really cool feature, but you can now filter the Schedule O1 data for a specific BARS account or object code or fund number, and the filter results will appear in the data table below. So in this example, I am wanting to only look at my fund 107, maybe because I think I accidentally duplicated something in this fund. So I would type that fund number into the applicable field. And as you can see in the data table, only the line items with fund 107 would appear. And then once I am finished reviewing these, I would just clear the filter fields and then all the data will reappear. So there's a lot of really cool features here that you can, work with your Schedule O1 data all right here. So as we've been going through, you may have been wondering what these gray headers are for, located to the right of the data table. And we're going to look at each of these in more detail. But before I do that, I want to point out that each of these 3 categories are collapsible. So to collapse or expand a category, you just click within the header. If you don't have any errors or variances, then all categories will be collapsed automatically, since there wouldn't be anything to display. But if you do have errors, the category will automatically be expanded, just like in the bottom image, so that you can clearly see that there are errors that will need to be addressed. And then each header has a blue information icon that you can click to read guidance and instructions related to that category of errors. So let's look at the line item category first. So these are errors associated with specific line items on the Schedule 01. So there are toggle features within this category that allow you to filter each error listed, and the filter results will display in the data table. So in this example, I am wanting to only view the line items with the error invalid bars account. So you can see I have clicked the toggle button to turn it on, and you can see that it's on because it turns blue, and it has, I know it's a small print on this presentation, but it says on. So you can clearly identify which toggle buttons are on or off. And then once that toggle button is on, the filter results will only show me the line items with this error. So after reviewing all of those, I would just click the toggle button to turn it off, and then all the line items will reappear in the data table. So moving on to general errors, these are errors that are not associated with specific line items, and these apply to the Schedule 01 as a whole. So these are errors that possibly impact multiple line items, which is why there are no toggle features here. There aren't many errors though that would populate here, but a common one is if a fund number has multiple names, since only one name can be displayed on the generated statements. So this is when the filter function at the top would be really helpful, because I see that my fund 001 has multiple names. So I could use the filter to only view my 001 fund to narrow down where the inconsistency is. And then if your Schedule 01 results in a variance check error, the fund and variance amount will be displayed in a table within the variance checks category. And this separates out required errors and warning errors for variances. This really reduces the amount of clicking back and forth, trying to identify the variance amount, which fund it's in, opening the reports, going back and forth. So if you've been a previous filer, you know what I'm talking about. The new people, you just don't even have to worry about it, because this is going to be much more efficient. And then just a tip for the variance check errors, the info icon on this header is going to be extremely helpful to understand what the system calculation is to detect these variances, and tips on, how to resolve it, what to look for, and things like that. And if you want to look at all funds, regardless of variance errors, you can still open the full reports by clicking the blue report titles. The reports will open as a pop-up window, and this you see all of the data, all the funds, the totals, and what the difference value is, even if it's zero. And then you can download and export this if you need to. And it is just a pop-up window. So when you're done, you can close it, and you will remain in the same place during the filing process. So now that we have filed our Schedule 01 and resolved any errors, this is the final thing for the Schedule 01 step. Since everyone here today reports as cash basis, the filing system generates summary statements of your Schedule 01 called the C4 and C5. These statements provide a summary of fund resources and uses arising from cash transactions. The C5 is only applicable for governments that report fiduciary funds. So if that doesn't apply to you, then you just won't see the option to export the C5. So to view these statements, just click that blue C4, C5 button and choose which one you want to view, and a pop-up window will open with a preview of the statement. As you can see, these are formatted professionally, and this is what is used during audit. You have the options to print or download it to your computer. We highly recommend governments save a copy of these statements for your records because it is a system generated report. So after 4 years, it is permanently removed from our database. So we really are encouraging governments to retain this for your own records. Okay, and then finally, in the revenues and expenditures module, there is just one additional step for cities, towns, and counties. This is a summary step and it is informational purposes only. And variance here should be reviewed, but there are no validation checks to prevent submission of the report. These, there could be a very logical reason why there would be a variance here, so this is just for information purposes only. Okay, just pausing for a moment. All right, I don't see any questions out there, so I am going to pass it over to Vivian once I see her. There she I was like, oh, am I going to be teaching this all by myself?
I'm here. All right. Well, thanks, Kaylee, for giving us a little sneak peek of the revenues and expenditures module, the government information module. We're going to hop into the liabilities module. So that is just the next one on the totem pole, as you can see. It is illuminated in orange. That means that you are located in that specific module. So the liabilities module, this is where you're going to be doing the Schedule 09. When you first bump into this little module, you're going to hop into the Schedule 09 instructions page. So you'll see the liabilities, that one's orange, and then you'll also see it says Schedule 09 instructions, and that is orange. So that's how you know exactly what step you are on within this module. This does give you a couple of links on where you can go if you're looking for some extra information. So you'll see next to that little like warning in all caps at the end there, it's going to take you out to BAR's manual sections that are related to the cash pension liabilities. So if that's something that you are needing to report, I know somebody sent a question in about that earlier. There's a link, just a quick link straight from the filing system out to the BAR's manual. So it's pretty nifty. When you jump into this step, though, you will be required to answer yes or no, whether or not you are going to be reporting liabilities for the year. That warning notice discusses why you may be auto selected to yes. So some folks on this call, when you jump into this step, you won't have the option to answer this question and it'll already be yes for you. And that warning indicator just above this box now, that is actually telling you why it is that you have been auto selected as yes. It's not to just be mean to you or anything. There's two situations that will land you on yes, auto selected. The first is going to be if you in the prior year when your government filed, there was a pending ending balance. So the filing system knows that you should have at least a beginning balance to report. Even if you've paid off that liability for the year during like this fiscal year, you're going to still need to report a beginning balance, that reduction payment, and then you'll just have an ending balance of 0. The other reason that you might be selected as yes when you jump in here is if you are a participant with the Department of Retirement Services pension. The filing system is kind of tricky, and in the background, it already has a document uploaded that it's tattling on you essentially, and it's telling you, it's telling us to let you know, hey, you do have pension liabilities and you're required to report those to our office. So that's how you can end up being a yes candidate here. So if you have selected yes, or you've been told that you need to report to us, you are going to go ahead and jump over to the actual Schedule 09 page. When you jump in here, there's going to be an automatic window that pops up. So you can either upload a completed template or you can add the line items manually. If you're not ready to do that, you can just go ahead and click the little X and close out of this box. You can just come back and re-upload later whenever you are ready. So just want to be sure that you have those two options. If you have elected to import the Schedule O9 data manually, you can select the debt ID number from the dropdown without having to normally like type it into the template. So you'll be sure to input your debt ID number. If you have selected your debt type, you're going to want to make sure that you select the correct one. There's only two options, but if you select the wrong option, your debt ID number won't be presented to you when you're actually trying to input your data. So that's usually the first thing I tell folks if they don't see their ID number, which is the second option here. You'll probably want to be changing your debt type to get your debt ID number to show up. Otherwise, you're going to just go ahead and plop all of your information in here. So the beginning balance, if you borrowed additional money on that specific liability, so you can see this one has a $1,200 addition. Any reductions, so any of those principal payments that you made during the year at the government, and then an ending balance here. If there is a maturity date, that's fantastic. However, this one, under the descriptions, you can see that these are net pension liabilities they've reported, and therefore there is no maturity date, and that's not a required field for this. So after you've imported or input all of your data manually, you'll see that the Schedule O9 page looks a lot like the Schedule O1 page. It does have the header over on the right side of the screen where you can look at all of your line item errors that you might have. You can see that this one does have two, and it does offer the toggle feature that we have in our filing system now. So you can go ahead and toggle that on and look at those just two required errors that you have to correct. Similar to the Schedule O1, you can still edit those specific lines right in the filing system. Pretty nifty. You just got to make sure you hit that edit button about halfway in the screen there. We are going to go ahead and take a little bit of a zoomed in look under those variance checks though. So this is just the box that was on the right side of the screen in the previous slide. So under the variance checks, these are the three reports that are offered in our system. I don't want to just speak to the veterans on the call, but these are the same exact reports that we've always offered. So they're called the exact same thing and they still give you all of the same information. This is one of those things that we still know people are using it. So this didn't receive any updates, except for the fact that it's a lot easier to look at. If you are interested in looking at any of these, so you can see there's a variance on the debt principal payments check and the beginning outstanding check. So we're just going to go ahead as if like we're looking at the report. You'll just click that blue font and it's going to open up this pop-up window to review the report. You can do a lot of things in here. One of the things you can do is print it. So if you need to print it and take it to somebody else to share it with them, go ahead and do that. But really what this specific report is doing on the top part of it, it's looking at all of the principal payments that were reported on the Schedule O1, and it's comparing those to any of the reduction payments from the Schedule O9. And then at the bottom there, you can see there's a grand total for a variance. Once you're done looking at this though, you can just go ahead and click that X at the top right. And it's just going to drop you back right onto the page you were on before. So it's pretty nice. Not as many clicks. I think Kaylee talked about the amount of clicks that the old system used to have of like back and forth and back and forth. And that's just not something that you have to do anymore. So it's super user friendly. We definitely recommend using these if you need to. There were the other two options, and we're not going to focus on those only because that information icon that was available in that box, it does actually give you the details that are included under each of the variance check reports. So if you need to look at any of the other ones, you're not sure. Yeah, there we go. That little information icon right there. You can go ahead and hover over that and it's going to tell you all of the details that are included on each of those three reports. So then you can tell exactly what it is that you're looking at before you open it. Sorry, that was just a little aside. We're going to hop over and look at the Schedule O9 template. So if you filed with us before, this probably looks super duper duper familiar to you. We've got all of these columns. This is the template out on our BARS templates page. And I think I mentioned earlier that there has been an update to this one. So it looks like this now. So column G is now not orange, and it's actually not even asking you for the same information. So if you didn't catch it before, this was a bars redemption code column. It was capturing data that we don't really look at anymore. It's not used for data analysis, so we've removed it. This is now what the template will look like. So again, just that tickler reminder, be sure that you're popping out there and you're getting this updated template. The filing system will not calculate your ending balances correctly if you use the old template, because it's trying to pick up the old column, and there's likely, hopefully, no information actually input in there. So check it out. I think that brings us to our next polling question. Okay, so poll number 4. So this is one of those things we're hoping to get an understanding of what type of annual report training that you all prefer. So I do just want to remind you all, this is simply for us to just gather data so we can be sure that we're meeting your guys' expectations in the future. So go ahead and throw some choices out there. It does want you to rank this in order, so we'll leave it open for a little bit. Let us know what your first, second, third, and fourth choices are here.
Yes, I won't close it too early like last time before I realized that it's a ranking question and I didn't give anybody enough time. So I'm going to wait the full minute.
Thanks, Kaylee. I always like to see what people share here.
Me too. Okay, I am going to close that for you, Vivian.
Thank you. So here are the results, and look, Kaylee, tell me if I'm looking at it wrong. It does look like most people like the live webinars. I see that. And then a lot of people like recorded webinars, which is good as a second choice. A short tutorial video, which is a third choice. There are some tutorial videos out there, so definitely we'll talk about where you can access any of those in the recorded webinars a little bit later. So, well, thanks everybody for sharing. We appreciate the feedback and appreciate your participation. We are now going to move out of the liabilities module and we're going to jump into the grants module. So it's just the next one down the line. This is where you're going to be completing the schedule 15 and 16 if they are required for you. So just like the 09, when you click into this module, you're first going to land on an instructions page. There's also information icons located here if you're not quite sure exactly what gets reported on which schedule. So definitely utilize those. You will be required to answer yes or no for each of these questions before you can move on to the next steps within this module. So if you look just for training purposes, we have answered yes on both of these so that we can go ahead and take a peek at the other three, steps that are required here. But of course, if you don't have this activity, go ahead and select no, and those additional steps, they're just going to disappear. They'll be gone. So if you've selected yes for the 15, just like the Schedule 09, the first thing you're going to see is the import option. So again, we offer the template on our templates page, or you can add those line items manually. But if you're not ready to do that, go ahead and close the box. It'll just open back up again when you come back here to remind you you haven't imported any of your data. If you do elect to import your data manually, we are going to, there it is. You'll have the opportunity. This is a really, really nifty update. I really like this. So if you have Schedule 15 data, you can go ahead and type your grantor in. So you can see that this one we typed in commerce, and you can actually just go ahead and pick which one of these it relates to. So you used to have to type in your bars code number, which you'll see is the first like 7 digits that are included there. And now it's hard to remember. You probably had to write it down on a sticky note or put it on a sticky note on your computer or something. I'm not sure what anybody was doing, but so this has made it a lot easier to actually input the data. We love this. We love this option. The other 2 things that you'll need to input here are the program title. You can see it's kind of covered right now with the drop down, but once you select out of the drop down, it'll obviously go away. And then the identification number, which is just a grant number. It's usually located on your granting documents, in this case that you would have gotten from the Department of Commerce. And then whatever amount you spent, expenditures is what gets reported here in the year. And then you'll just hit that add line item button at the bottom right there. And once you hit that add line item, this is what you're going to see. And you're probably like, wow, this looks so familiar to all the other things I've seen. And that's also totally the point. The filing system is really just meant to be a lot more uniform now, a lot more user friendly. So over there on the left, that's all the data that has been imported for this Schedule 15. Over on the right, you can see line item errors. Again, an info icon is offered here. I'm pretty sure there's like minimal potential line item errors on this specific schedule. So definitely, I mean, keep an eye out for the area, but know that all of these same options are available also for this schedule. So uploading a new schedule, adding specific line items, say that you were expecting 3 line items here, and now you're only seeing 2, you can add them there. There's all sorts of options on here, but they're all the same as the other modules also. We're gonna move on to the Schedule 16. Again, I hope that you guys aren't just like totally sick of hearing this, but the import page is going to open up first when you jump into the Schedule 16. Go ahead, pick which way you'd like to go. You're either gonna upload the template or you're gonna add your line items manually. If you have selected add line item or adding them manually, you're gonna go ahead and it's going to look like this. So once you've inputted your ALN number at the top, you can see that that's the first box, 21.027. It's going to auto-populate the federal agency name and the federal program name. The filing system is very tricky. It's helpful if things have been done correctly, 100%, but we know that things can get finicky in there. Depending on the specific award, there might be a pass-through agency name, which is the next area you can see here. And with that, there's an associated other award ID number. So keep those in mind as you're looking at those specific awards for an entry there. Then you'll need to tell us the total amount that was spent, again, expenditures in this case, under that specific award. A footnote reference is the next option there. So you'll see it's 1,2. There are notes that are required with this schedule, which we'll cover here in just a second briefly. And then the last one, this is another juicy update that I really like. This passed through to subrecipients. Before, it didn't specify that it was numeric values only. And so sometimes people were just saying, yeah, I passed it through. And the filing system would kind of yell at you for that. But now it is definitely obvious that it is expecting numeric values. It wants to know how much was passed through to the subrecipients here. And then what you're going to see next, it's probably looking very, very familiar. All of the data over there on the left is what you've uploaded for the Schedule 16. And then over on the right, you can see those identified line item errors in the data table. And you can go ahead and see the option to toggle on and just look at those errors. So if you toggle that on, all of the clean lines will go away and you'll just see the line item that has the specific error on it. All right, the notes now. So if you are submitting a Schedule 16, you are required to submit notes with that. And it is its own little step in the module. When you jump into this page, you're going to go ahead and hit that Select Files button over there on the left. Search through the files on your computer. So make sure they're organized. None of us on this side of the desk can look at your actual Document Explorer on your own computer. So make sure you know where those are saved. You'll go ahead and upload this in here. This is a nice little update also. It tells you exactly what it is that this has been called on your computer so that you can make sure you've uploaded the correct document. So you can see that this one, it says Schedule 16 Notes 2022. Oh, oops, maybe it's 2023 report. So you know that right away, and you can go ahead and delete these right in here by clicking the little X on the far right of the screen and delete those out and go try again and find that 2023 file. Okay, that takes us out of the grants module. That's the end of that. So closing that one, opening up the additional schedules. I do want to preface this by saying that sections within this module, they're going to be different based on government type. So we will be going through all the sections that are within this module, but just keep in mind, you may not be seeing all of them on your own annual report. The first section that you will see within this module is, of course, the instructions page. This will appear because at a minimum, you're going to need to be saying whether or not you are submitting notes to your financial statements. If you're filing and you don't remember if this does apply to you, go ahead and hover over the information icon that is located on this page, and there's some guidance that can help you out. Then if you are a city, town, or county, you're going to have this secondary question at the bottom, and it's going to be asking you if you're submitting a Schedule 17. You must select yes or no for this answer. So if you see the second question, I know that there are people on the call today that are these government types. You do need to answer this question before you can go do anything else. Okay, so for cash basis governments, this is the section where you're gonna submit and attach any of those notes to the financial statements if they are applicable. So typically this is a single document that is submitted, but if for some reason you have multiple files, they all can be attached here. And again, just like the Schedule 16 notes I talked about just a second ago, go ahead, hit that select files button, search through. You can see that these ones, they're called Notes Final 2022. So you know that those have a different name now than the Schedule 16 notes. You know that these are the complete notes for every single financial statement note you have. But if you upload the wrong thing, say you grab those Schedule 16 notes on accident, you can still delete them over there on the far right. So the Schedule 06, this is an attachment as well. So those of you city, town, county folks, you've probably talked to me before because you have the Schedule 06 and I answer a lot of the questions that come in on this. So you'll go ahead and just select the file straight off of your computer. We do have the template out there on the BARS recording templates page for this. You'll go ahead and just upload exactly what you have and attach it. And I think I'm going to toss it over to Kaylee to finish out this module.
Now I'm the slow one to start my video and unmute myself. I'm like, where did I put it? All right. Yes. So I am going to take us through the Schedule 17 and go over those updates that I mentioned in the very beginning. I'm going to go kind of quickly through this just because it probably only applies to probably a small number of you. So I just want to at least cover the updates so you know what to expect. So first, let's look at counties. So I'm looking at part 1. So the part 1 is there's no changes again to the content, but we are just changing how we collect it. So this used to be just a Word document, and you would just attach it. But now part 1 is actually going to be uploaded. So you can see that this, is the same information, and then you are going to upload it or add your data manually. So the same concept for the other previous schedules. And you can see if you choose to add it manually, you just fill in those applicable fields. And then now counties have a part 2. So if part 2 applies, you're going to check that box at the bottom, and then this additional information is going to be displayed right below it. So it's going to all be in the same page. And then you're just going to fill in those fields. And there are fields that are automatically calculated based on what was entered. And then we also provided an information icon on each field to make sure that you know what goes in there, just some helpful information. And then moving on to the Schedule 17 for cities and towns. Sorry. This is pretty straightforward. It's the same information, but there is now no longer a template or a manual upload because yours is exactly like the county's part 2. So you're just going to input the information into those fields. Some are going to be automatically calculated just like it was in the Excel template. So just know that this does have to be filled out in the filing system. So there is no longer a template for the cities and towns. And then Schedule 20, like I said earlier, this is a unique component. There was some updates made due to the recent legislative session, or no, I think it's, yeah, last legislative session. Sorry, I'm forgetting what time of the year it is. But I did send out an email with a little training on those updates, and you can also find it on our training and workshops page. So you can find that right there. All right, now let's move into the Schedule 21 section. This is going to be included for every local government. So you are all required to answer these questions, and this will determine if the full Schedule 21 applies to you or not. If it doesn't apply to you, you will see a message at the bottom in red that states, based on your responses above, the Schedule 21 is not applicable. If it does apply to you, instead of that red message, you're going to have a box to attach the completed Schedule 21. And it will also include a link to download the template if you need to do that as well. Okay, so before we get into the Schedule 22 module, I just want to highlight some of the exciting updates you can expect for the Schedule 22. I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but we have some really exciting updates to this, so I want to make sure that we cover all of those for our Schedule 22 filers. So I'm going to be walking through how to use these new features in the next few slides, but just a little preview. Some of the highlights are now being able to import the prior year Schedule 22 responses into your current year report. This is only for certain questions though, so it's not inclusive of all responses, but our hope is that as long as we're getting accurate information and you're updating as needed and things like that, we're hoping to add more questions next year and so on. And then we have added an information icon to each question that gives you additional guidance on what that question is asking for, what type of information, kind of just giving some examples. Because I know some of it if you're a first-time filer, some of the wording might be a little confusing as a new person. So we try to help provide as much guidance as we can. And then everything again is all on one page. So it really is a one-stop shop. As you heard us say for the last hour and a half, we really tried to achieve that goal. So now let's see these features in action. So if the Schedule 22 is required for your government, this module will automatically be included. So that takes out the guesswork of, does this apply to me or not? So we already know who is required to do it. So we just put the module in for you already. As I mentioned, everything is on one page. So everything for the Schedule 22 is right here. All questions are separated out into different categories that correspond with the type of operation we are asking about. Within each category header, we identify how many pending responses there are in that category of questions. This will update as you answer them. So it's going to just be live. And so you always have a really clear picture of how many responses you need to complete. And then it takes out all of that, hassle of having to go through all of the questions, trying to figure out where is the missing response. This will tell you in bright red letters. And then at the top, the blue button is what you will click to import the prior year responses. Again, this is only for certain questions, but it's still a great feature and it's a good number of questions. And then you just click that, it brings your prior year responses into the current questionnaire. And we do recommend and encourage you to review these imported responses just to ensure nothing has changed since the prior year, or maybe even you realize, oh, I attached the wrong thing last year and I need to update it. So you can do all of that in the current year schedule 22. So if you do see something that needs to be changed, you do not need to go fix your prior year report unless you want to and you haven't been audited yet. So just a word that you can do all of that in the current year report. So there are several different response types to the Schedule 22 questions. Some will ask for an explanation. Some will be radio buttons like a yes, no, or not applicable. Some will be a check box. So you check all the boxes that apply. And then some will require an attachment. We have created a new type of response for certain questions that will now require you to fill in a table with the applicable information. I know you might be thinking that is way more work than an attachment, but stay with me because with this new updated response, we are able to import prior year responses next year. So since this is the first year of the new table feature, next year when you're filing, this is going to be included in that import feature. So in the long run, it will be more efficient, just a little bit of work this first implementation year. So just looking at some examples. So this isn't the top image is an example of a question that requires you to attach a file. So you can see that the file has attached successfully by the file link. And then there is an option to delete it if you accidentally attach the wrong file. You can also attach multiple files if needed. They will all be listed here within that question. And then the bottom image is an example of that new table format response that I was just talking about. This question is about the government's elected officials. This used to be just an attachment, but we built this new table for you to fill in that information. And this also ensures that your auditors are getting the correct and accurate information regarding the elected officials. And for this, you're going to click that blue add row button to add the applicable number of rows needed based on the number of elected officials. So in this example, you can see I inputted myself. I am not a governing board member, but just for examples. So put in all that information and then I added a secondary row to continue. And so those red asterisks just indicate that those are required fields. You will notice that the mailing address is optional. So that's why there is no red asterisk there. And you can also remove rows if you accidentally added too many. Then moving out of the Schedule 22 and into the other attachments module, this is really just a placeholder for comfort. If a government needs or wants to attach something that wasn't asked for already in a previous module, you can do so here. Or if you don't have anything else to attach or add, you can just skip this module entirely. There's nothing required here. And then once you get to the submit report module, there is a final validation check that will display any outstanding components that need to be completed. You can click fix errors on the right and it'll take you to that module and the applicable step. And then once everything is complete and ready to go, you will see the top image where you'll click sign annual report. And this generates your electronic signature. This is nothing fancy. This is just your name and email address based on the account used to log in. And then after you sign the report, you'll see your name and email address and a button that says submit annual report as shown in the bottom image. It's very important to remember to click the submit button because some people will click the sign and they think they're done and then they miss the actual submission of the report. So just make sure, remember that this is 2 parts. You sign and then submit. And once you submit the report, you should see this, which is a confirmation that it was submitted successfully. At this time, you should also receive an email notification confirming the submission. If you don't see this step, or it glitched and just it took you somewhere else, or didn't receive the email, just make sure you can come back to that annual report homepage and see the status of your report, or you can reach out to us and we can help confirm and then figure out what happened that you didn't get that confirmation. And with that, I have our last polling question. So I'm launching that. Should be up on your screen now. The question is, how do you prefer to receive help with your annual report? And just a reminder that live chat is that instant messaging service that's available during peak filing season, which is March through May. So we're almost in peak filing season. So get your report started early to allow plenty of time to ask questions and get assistance. All right, give that a, oh, this is one of the, oh, see, I almost did it again. This is one of those, the top choices. So I'll give it a couple extra seconds. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end that poll and share the results real quick. So I see, so where is the top choice? Okay, live chat is definitely a top choice. That's actually my favorite as well. It's so efficient. Multiple people we can all be in there. It's really great. I think that's an awesome feature. So, and then email, yes, email's always great. So awesome. Well, thank you everyone for sharing those results with us. We always appreciate seeing how you guys all like to get help and assistance with your annual report. All right, so for my cities, towns, and counties, this is your additional module for the Road Street Report. This is prescribed and required by the Washington State Department of Transportation, WashDOT. So we are only the collectors of the data, and we do so on behalf of WashDOT. But I also want to talk about, this module and some updates that you can expect with this. So the reason this module is after the submit report module is because it's not part of our SAO annual report requirements that is due within 150 days after fiscal year end. WashDOT establishes their own deadline and process of when they need this information. So we wanted to make it so that you could come back and complete this module without having to unlock your report. So this is still generated based on your Schedule O1 data, but if edits aren't needed to the Schedule O1, then there is no need or reason to unlock your report. So you can just view your report, go to this module and complete the Road Street report whenever that their deadline is, and you don't have to worry about doing it by our reporting deadline for the annual report. So I'm going to just briefly show you what the steps look like. There aren't significant, changes to anything here. That one was the biggest update, is just being able to do it without having to unlock your report. So that was the big, exciting update. So again, this is the revenues. This is all very similar to how it was in the old system. You have your Road Street revenue column. You'll input the amounts there. And then the Schedule O1 column, these amounts are pulled from your Schedule O1. And then I won't go into the transfers and expenditure steps, only because they look and function the exact same as the previous filing system, but they are broken out into the appropriate steps. but I did want to point this new thing out. So we now have a street road report summary step. This is going to show all of your totals based on what was filled out in the previous steps and what was pulled from your Schedule 01. And then you have the ability to view and export the road street report data. I highly recommend doing that, just in case, even if it's 6 months to a year later, you have to unlock and update your Schedule 01. It will overwrite the road street report since that is all generated on your Schedule 01. So just a note that to not lose data in the future, definitely retain that report for your records. So that wraps up our navigating through the filing system. I just wanted to see. Okay, so I thought I saw this question and I was like, that's a good question to talk about to the group. So the question was, can you jump between schedules, or do you have to complete all of these modules in order? The answer is you can jump around and complete whatever you want at any time, and just submit it by the deadline. But yes, you can bounce around. There's no requirement to go in order. I know, as we had mentioned, when you get to certain modules, that upload window is going to automatically open, but you can close those and continue on if you aren't ready to do that yet. So yes, definitely can jump around. All right, sorry, I just wanted to answer that because that was a good question. And now I am going to hand it off to Vivian.
Right. Thanks, Kaylee. We are going to go ahead and talk about some resources and training. If you just haven't had enough of us, there's more of us to go around. So what else are we up to in the next couple of months? We will plan to continue to offer these webinars through April. They'll be offered, I think this is our last month doing just one a month. So for March and April, there will be 2 sessions for each basis of accounting. So there will be 2 opportunities to visit us next month if you're a cash basis government. So if you feel like maybe you didn't catch something today and you're hoping that you're going to catch it before you start filing your annual report, come back, see us again. The webinar is free, so feel free to do that. We do have sessions that we have available that are not live though, and those are recorded. So those are saved in our e-learnings library, and those are available to view at any time. I think we'll talk about the e-learnings library in just a sec, but it's stocked full of a bunch of filing resources. So how can you get out there? If you drop back onto our main landing page, again, I promised you everything we talk about today is going to be under the bars and annual filing tab. So close to the bottom, it looks like the second option from the bottom is the training and workshops page. If you go ahead and you click that, you're going to drop onto this page. So this is our e-learnings library. You can see that we have 3 different sections. So we have bars update library. The second one is the annual filing system and the schedules library. And then we have an additional one for other specific accounting topics. So if you're hoping to find some more information about what we talked about today, you're going to want to go move to the right of the screen and expand so that little plus button, and it'll drop you down with all of the 3 available recordings that we have for the annual filing system. Because you can access these videos at any time, you can also click through the videos to view any of the sections that are just most relevant to the current progress, either in the filing system or the annual report. But if you have any other staff that maybe didn't get to come today that is going to work with the filing system, you can always send them a link to any of our videos that you might feel that would help them the most. So keep those options in mind. Other areas and avenues that you can reach us for annual filing support. Today's webinar would have been found under that webinars option. You can see there at the top, but also see the filing support portion of this page. So if you've been around for a while, you might recall those one-on-one workshops that were provided to clients during the filing season. We're now taking those by appointments only. So you'll just need to go ahead and submit a request to us at the email that's available at the bottom there. just reach out to us. Let us know what specific questions or area you're struggling with in the annual report. And one of the technicians that's available in our office will go ahead and reach out to you to schedule that one-on-one meeting to have those conversations. A few of the resources, if you are looking out for that kind of stuff, again, back on the same website page under bars and annual filing, there's the bars and annual report filing FAQ page. There are a few new resources out here that have been prepared by our office. Those are really just intended to help assist you while you're navigating the annual report. So if you click that page, you're going to find this next little screenshot here, and there's two really awesome resources that we've just published. So the first one is a handbook. And this truly is a step-by-step guide on how to navigate and get you through the filing system itself. It'll also point out to you many of the features that we've discussed today. So in case you've forgotten them, when it actually comes time to preparing your report, it has been just recently published. I'm pretty sure in the last week. So definitely check that out. If you came out here a couple weeks ago and you didn't see it, it's ready, it's available for you. The second item is the error guide. So this resource is similar to the previous flag description guide that was available. In the refreshed filing system, there are those various errors that you could receive while you're attempting to prepare your report. And this guide provides you a description of what the error is, and it provides you some suggestions on how to resolve the error if you've received one. Just a quick glimpse at the filing handbook. If you do cruise out to the resource page, this is available in PDF, which I just love. I am still a printer person. I like to print out things and just scribble all over it and put notes out there. I know that there are some folks, they might be preparing to pass the baton of the filing system and the annual report to the next person in line. Great for you. Kudos to you on convincing somebody to take it off your plate. But this will be really helpful. If you printed it out, you can scribble all of your own little secret notes on there and you can give that information to the next person. So here's a glimpse of what it looks like. So you can see that we do cover annual report components. So very similar to what we covered today. And then there's that navigation of the annual filing system. It also has screenshots in there. So if you're not quite sure exactly where it is you're supposed to click or what exactly it is, this example right here, the login with SAO, it's just a reminder to click that one instead of the Active Directory option. So pretty helpful. The error guide is the next one. So previously there was the, red flag, yellow flag, and we've talked about how those have gone away. So the required error, those are replacing red flags. They're not in addition to. These are items that need to be corrected before you can submit. You won't even be offered the opportunity to sign and submit on the last module if you have any required errors that you need to address. The warning errors, those were what we used to call the yellow flags. They've been replaced, they're gone. And in its place are the warning errors. So really that's just telling you, hey, this could be an error. It doesn't allow you to say, no, it's not an error and make it go away by any means. But it's really just asking you the question to take a look, second glance at what it is that it's trying to point out. A glimpse of what that error guide looks like. So over there on the left, you can see these are required errors. And then under that, you'll see that those are the required errors specifically in the Schedule 01. So you'll see that even further to the right of that, it says that that is in the revenues and expenditures module of the filing system. In the blue bar, you can see that that's the name of the error that you are receiving. So the first one over there on the left, funds do not balance. It tells you in the first gray box how to resolve that, and it gives a narrative for that. And then depending on your basis of accounting, if you're here with us today, your cash basis, it gives you a BARS manual link to the schedule instructions on how to resolve that specific error. So definitely check those out if this is you. You're obviously welcome to reach out to us. I'll talk about how to get a hold of us in a second. But this is a way, maybe you are trying to crank on this at 9 p.m. And none of us are around to help you and you can't get your question answered. You can at least take a stab at it by heading out to any of these. And these are available for all of the modules. So you can see over there on the right, those are the Schedule 09 errors that you could potentially be getting when you're working on the Schedule 9. So it's not just exclusive to the Schedule 01. Okay. If you slept through any of this training today, hopefully you're not sleeping right now because 2024 is a leap year if you didn't already know. And that means that the annual report is due by Wednesday, May 29th. So remember that the deadline is established in state law and it says it's due 150 days after the fiscal year end. We are not allowed to grant extensions, even if though we wish we could sometimes. We're just strongly encouraging all of you, go ahead and get this process started. The filing system is refreshed and there's a lot of new stuff out there for folks to kind of navigate and learn about. So the earlier you get started, the earlier we can give you assistance and we can get any of your questions answered. I don't see any questions sitting down in the Q&A, so we're just going to go ahead and talk about how you can get a hold of us. That's our email box at the top there. So lgcsfeedback@sao.wa.gov. You'll get navigated your email will be assigned to a very specified technician that can answer your questions. So if you do have questions, go ahead, reach out to us there. If you do have a technical question, more accounting related rather than just the annual report, that person, whoever assigns that, will probably send you out to our help desk just to make sure that you can get a hold of somebody that is a specialist under that specific accounting topic. So keep that in mind. If it's just a reporting question, go ahead and send it to that email available on your screen. But if it is an accounting question, the help desk is most certainly the best place you can go. I think that's all we have today. So I just want to give you guys the reminder. We do have a survey that's going to pop up after the webinar has ended. We do appreciate your feedback. It's just a brief little 2-question survey. And if there's nothing that you really are excited to share about in that survey, you can at least give Kaylee and I kudos for wearing matching sweatshirts today. Not attempted to. We're clear across the state from each other, so we had no idea that was going to happen. So hopefully you noticed before I said it. If not, go ahead and give us some kudos for something else you enjoyed and give us a little bit of feedback on what we can improve for the next time you come join us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.